Here we go. This is episode 2, Workin' the Con. What's up? Welcome to Be Happy I Didn't Kill You, Confessions of a Recovering Angry Girl. Sam here, your host with the most unchecked emails. Con season has started, and today's topic is con prep, preparation, working, and all the parts that go into selling yourself and your product. And here to discuss with us is Mike Alvarez. Hi, Mike.
Hey. How's it going?
Good. How's it going with you?
Can't complain. I'm just, tired as per usual. As anyone who's heard me on other podcasts, I generally am always tired. Working third shift will do that to you.
Yes, and I wanted to thank you so much for recording on Easter Sunday with me.
No
Easter
problem.
Sunday night recording.
It actually worked out pretty good because we celebrated yesterday because Caleb and Jess, my wife and son, are going to Florida with her dad tomorrow. So we celebrated a little bit early, and then we celebrated with my family. So today was just kind of a chill, lazy day. So works out perfectly.
Nice. Very nice. Those days I always appreciate it. I just went to my mom's and everybody else cooked, so that was nice. I just stuffed my face and then headed home.
I love doing that.
Good times too. When somebody else can cook for you is always appreciated.
Absolutely.
I just want to say you probably heard Mike before on Boogeyman's Closet, his other podcast, and Raised by Rentals, and Count Creepyheads, and also Mike Alvarez artwork. You've probably seen him at conventions in the past, and he's done some comics and movies and lots of other things. Right, Mike?
Yeah. I've definitely had some fun over the last 20 years. Still hoping to do more, but things are slowing down in my old age. I'm kind of doing more podcasting than anything else, but I'm still sticking in with the artwork.
Yeah, which definitely leads us into the shout out of the week for Boogeyman's Closet podcast, which is Mike's kind of baby, your big project that you want to do, and finally made the step and did it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Thank you.
I really enjoy, especially when you mix up the guests and everything. I just finished Green Room with Corey and Brian, and man, that was a intense movie, and just the way you guys went through it and kind of covered all those aspects of it and everything were really great.
Thank you. No, I love that movie. And I felt like we definitely had a fun episode with that. I was really glad Corey and Brian were able to come and hang out on that episode, especially with how many shows, Brian and Corey have gone to in their life, both being big punk fans and stuff. So I felt like that was a good flick to have them on for. And Brian had a lot of insight, so I was really glad to have them on there. But yeah, the Boogeyman's Closet is one of those shows I had been talking about doing, God, almost 8 years before I finally pulled the trigger. I kept saying, I want to do this one day. I want to do that. I was always afraid. I was always afraid I'd screw it up. And,
I feel like I'm the queen of that. There's so many things where I'm like, yeah, one day, and then just...
Yep. Well, it's that whole, we allow self-doubt and, nerves to get in the way of stuff like that. And for me, it was all about, I don't know how to edit. I don't know how, I don't know good recording equipment. And I couldn't figure out what to do. And, finally I was just like, screw it. I started asking a few people that I know that were podcasters and got a couple suggestions about different types of mics and stuff like that, and some editing equipment, or editing software, I should say. And none of it was really working for me, what was being suggested. So I started digging a little deeper and found that I could record on my iPhone, and there was a program called Ferrite that I could use to edit, so I could edit both at home and while at work. And then I just bought some cheap-ass lapel mics and said, hey, we're going to jump in feet first. Let's do this.
Yeah, and it sounds great, so it's definitely working. So everybody should check out Boogeyman's Closet on all the social medias and give it a listen on anywhere that you listen to your podcast, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I think the only place we're not on is YouTube, and that's only because in the early episodes we did have a lot of sound bites and stuff, and YouTube is real finicky with sound bites. So I was like, rather than edit out those sound bites specifically for a YouTube launch, I'm like, screw it. It's everywhere else.
Definitely. And I feel like when you're starting to, you got to find where like works best for you at the moment, and then you can always change it up later or whatever. Go with the flow.
Absolutely. And especially because I think people forget sometimes that a lot of us making podcasts, it's not only something we're doing in our free time because we all have jobs and other responsibilities, but on top of it, a lot of times it's for free. Like we're doing this for fun. So it's like, sometimes there's going to be a little quirk here and there, and you just kind of have to roll with it with podcasts.
Yeah, but that's the part of like showing that like, hey, we're still human. Yep. Robots haven't taken us over yet.
Yeah, not yet. They're sure trying, but jeez.
So, jumping into our discussion point for this week. So I kind of figured we can go through the steps of like, getting a spot, finding a spot, planning, setting up, kind of doing all that, work it through, and then talk at the end of that some of the challenges and stuff, or even along the way too with, working a con or getting into a con. So starting, especially like finding a spot, I feel like some of these you had to be jumping in on that around Christmas.
Yeah. This year, I'm a little bit concerned, only because me and my con partner, Tara, shout out to Tara Marie Artwork, TM Illustrations.
Yep.
And definitely.
Dreams.
Yep. I was going to say, and check out Coffin Dreams LLC. But yeah, we've been doing cons together since late 2017. Or no, I'm sorry. No. She couldn't join me 2017. It's 2018 that she joined me. But we've been doing local shows, and I usually try to get us to table as soon as possible. But this year, we were unsure what we were going to do for Nickel City, only because the new owners had changed a lot last year. So we were still discussing on like, did we want to do the show? Like, how are we going to handle this? So we eventually got in. So I'm hoping my table is good this year. Because we definitely got in late.
It's crazy because you are getting that really high guaranteed volume, but at the same time, like the prices you're paying is like, well, you're also a starving artist.
Right. And see, that's, I think, one of the things a lot of people don't understand about the behind the scenes thing is conventions thrive on the vendors. So they're going to thrive on your artist alley, on your local shopkeepers and vendors and stuff who pay to have these tables and actually have product for people to buy. The celebrities are what draw people into a con. So it's like, if you have, say, Hulk Hogan on the ticket, people are going to be like, yeah, I'm going to go meet Hulk Hogan. But what else are they going to do while they're there? Well, they're going to walk around the show floor and they're going to buy stuff from vendors and artists like me and Tara. But the problem is a lot of times the people putting these shows on tend to put all of us vendors to like, we're all at the back. So the prices get raised, all the stuff that we need to spend up front keeps going up every year, and it is getting harder and harder. And then the other problem is the ticket cost for conventions keeps getting higher. So one of the things we often hear is people say, I really want that, but I can't afford it because my ticket was so much, and then I had enough to get this celebrity photo op, and then I only got like $10 left, and it sucks because as anyone knows in today's society, everything costs too much right now.
Yeah, and it's sad that you have these artists that are practically funding your event and helping you get this venue and everything, and then you're not putting them through like an area. If you want to get to the celebrities, your main thing, then make them walk through all the vendors first, especially the vendors that's supporting your event and helping you pay for this event. Like that's the way the layout should be, but I feel like a lot of times people aren't putting that into consideration. The layout and who's funding that and everything, because a lot of times it's just ran by people that are just like, yeah, this is a great idea, but it's like, well, there's also so much that goes into that great idea, and I feel like a big part of that is listening to feedback from vendors like you, you know?
Absolutely, and some conventions were really really good about it.
Oh yeah.
I will say locally, one of the ones that I miss it terribly, Para Horror.
Oh yeah,
Their
they were
setup,
great.
I loved it because they had the celebrities mixed right in with all the vendors. So like people couldn't help but be like, oh, you want to talk to, David Howard Thornton? Well, walk through this vendor area. You're going to see all these different people selling their wares, and then there's David sitting at a table amongst all the vendors. That was a fantastic setup because everyone mingled. And
Yeah,
even
that was
this,
my. I was gonna say that was my favorite part. Vendoring those was like you were mingling with everyone, and
yep,
you were all on this equal level where you were all there to entertain.
yeah,
To entertain and to give somebody something that they can bring home and share that experience. Not only did they get to meet a celebrity, but they also talked to the cool shop that was right next to the celebrity while they were waiting. You
yep.
know.
And for the vendors, it's pretty awesome because like a lot of times in those type of events, like the celebrities will chit chat with you. Like I had that happen multiple times. But yeah, one of my favorite times was with Patty Mullen because like first of all, she was like right behind me and Tara. She was tabled like right across the row, and she ran into me outside. This is back when I still smoked. I was standing outside having a cigarette, and I was dressed up as the mad scientist.
That
that
was
weird.
great, by the way.
Thank you. That weird steampunk mad scientist costume, and I'm standing outside waiting for the con to open. She comes out and flips. It's like, oh my god, that's such a cool mad scientist costume. Can I get a photo with you? And I'm like, yeah, can I get one with you? Like, so we got to chit chat, and then for the rest of the con, like every time her table was slow, she'd like scoot over to me and Tara and just shoot the shit, and it was awesome. Like I friggin' love that. And then the same thing happened at Buffalo Comic Con with Linnea Quigley. Like I went over and talked to her, and now the way they had it set up, they weren't quite with the vendors, but they weren't separated from the vendors either. They were like along
down at
the
aisle,
wall.
right?
Yeah. It was like a back wall, but then the vendors went right up to that area. So, like they were kind of mixed in. But the first day I chatted with Linnea and gave her some Return of the Living Dead fan art because, I'm a stupid fanboy for that movie. But then the next day she came over and sat at the table for a minute and just shot the shit. It was awesome. So
Yeah. That's so cool that you're like down in the trenches with them in a way,
Right.
It definitely is more sense of community that way.
Oh, totally agree. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of these showrunners kind of forget is layout is extremely important, not just for good sales and good good attendance, but for everybody to just have a good time.
Morale,
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you want that vibe to go too, because a lot of them, they're fans too. Not only do they like act in this and everything, but even if they weren't fans prior to acting, it's like it's such a sense of community that why wouldn't they like kind of want to be part of it?
Oh, absolutely. It kind of blows my mind that that kind of stuff isn't thought of ahead of time, Or if it is, it's just not cared about, I guess.
Well, any promoters out there or anything putting shows together, make sure you take note.
Yes, please.
Location.
But yeah, I mean, especially with the cost of this stuff too, because like it's I know you mentioned you wanted to talk about the like what goes into it, and I mean, one of the things I have to do every year is I have to plan out like how much money am I spending on this convention. So what is my table cost? And just to kind of give a little bit of perspective, me and Tara usually get what's considered to be a corner booth. Now that has changed from convention to convention. Normally what a corner booth is like two 8-foot tables, sometimes 6-foot tables, but at the very end of a row, kind of, in an L shape. And then we kind of sit in that little section. So one of us has one table, one of us has the other. Now, unfortunately, a lot of cons are starting to do the thing where you pay for a corner booth but you only get one 6-foot table, and then you have to provide any other tables. So, and
Which
then
is
if you
okay
can't,
if you know in advance.
right. But
You
the thing
know.
is, if you can't provide another table, they charge
Yeah.
you an additional $50 to $100 for
Yeah.
another table. So right off the bat, you're looking at an expense just for the table. But that in the past was around $300. Now it's averaging about $400 for the corner booth. Also in Buffalo, they just recently passed the bill where you have to have a temporary vendor license for stuff, so you're going to have to pay like a $40 charge for a temporary vendor license. So just to get our feet in the door, not counting like what we need for setup, it's almost $450.
Yeah.
So right out of the gate, you're spending a lot. But then the other thing that you don't think of, or many people don't think of, I should say, is your cost for your product. Mm-hmm. So
your
in the case, yep, I was gonna say in the case for me, it's mostly prints. Now, I can get away with a fairly cheap print cost if I do smaller prints, and that's one of my tactics. Is I will do a lot of smaller, what I call impulse prints, where I don't have to charge more than like $1. And it's this way people have something that they can get from the con without spending a lot of money. I can make a little bit of money back. And personally, those are the types of things I look for when I'm going down Artist Alley, because I want to try to get something from a bunch of different vendors. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, what's a little cheaper that is still a cool example of their artwork? So I always try to make sure to have that kind of thing, because that's what I like to buy. And then on top of that, you figure all the bags and boards, because I always put every print in like a comic bag with a backer board so it doesn't bend. And then your boards or your bags for people who buy stuff, just put it all in a bag. So right off the top, you have all of your packaging. That's going to be at least $100. And then my print cost is usually anywhere between $150 and $200, depending on how much I get. So even with me and Tara,
on the size of the show,
like
how much stuff you want to have.
Well, that and how much leftover I have from a previous show. Like, if I have a good amount of leftovers, I might only spend like $100. But if I last year, I sold out a lot of my horror prints, so I'm gonna have to get all of those reprinted this year. So I'm probably looking at closer to $200 in my prints. Which again, it was really good that I sold all those prints, but my upfront cost for this year is going to be a lot more. So you figure just like with splitting the table with Tara, it's like, okay, that's $225. And then add on my packaging cost, that's $325, and then my print cost, I'm already up to like $525. That's not even counting like I have to buy extra badges for booth help, which I shouldn't say I have to, but I prefer to, because
I do too.
Yeah, I mean, you want to have your friends.
You kind of want to have your crew there, kind of for support, backup, and you don't want to be at a booth alone. You have to go to the bathroom. Been there,
exactly.
Done that. That's
the worst.
Or if you're like really hungry or something, or you kind of just need like, hey, there's somebody here I really want to check out. I want to bounce over and get that. To have like that support is always really nice.
Absolutely, and I'll tell you right now, my worst time in a convention was one time. It was me and our friend Ben at a con, and he had gone to, I think he was going to like talk to like a celebrity or something, but he ended up getting into a really good conversation. So he was having a great time, and no shade his way. It was just, I'm sitting there shaking a leg. I had to piss so bad. And I was like, oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom. And it was such a busy convention, so I didn't want to get up. So I'm just shaking a leg.
Kind of creative too. You're like, could I piss in a bottle and no one saw my dick? I don't know.
Right, exactly.
But you get down that lane where like, okay, so that plastic bag is holding that picture, but could I pee in it? Right. I don't know. Like, is it gonna hold up? Is everybody gonna be like, oh my God? Or something will make me jump. All of a sudden, I'm covered in pee. I just had to go to the bathroom. I swear.
It sounds like a Judd Apatow movie. Just like had him start peeing all over the place. Oh God, I'm so sorry.
Sorry, I feel like I've literally been down that mindset while sitting at a con having to go.
Oh, I absolutely have. Like,
it's no just joke. We're sharing the experience of the working these things. Have support.
Oh, it's awful. Like if you have to go to the bathroom and you have no one helping you, boy, it sucks.
Even have two. Even have two. Have that
Yeah,
backup. Because that person
exactly.
may, you get distracted, especially if you're going to walk around and stuff. And that's the point. You're supposed to be socializing. You're supposed to be experiencing other people's things and everything. So having like that happen is okay. It's going to happen. So have
Oh,
two people.
absolutely. Yeah, we always try to at least have to shout out to Maurice and Danielle who frequently help me and Tara at Nickel City. Um, because like Maurice, I joke all the time that he is our good luck charm because I cannot tell you the amount of times that Tara and I were having a slow moment. Like it just really we weren't selling much, and then because of that, we're like, you know what, let's get up and walk around, let's see the con. So we'll leave Maurice to man the tables, and we'll go walk around. We'll come back, and Maurice will have like $200 for us. I'm like, dude, what did you do? Like, how did you push that much product?
You left your hype man at the table. That's what's supposed to happen.
Right? I'm convinced
But
he's
really,
showing a
shout
little
out
leg.
to Maurice. Like he's awesome. He's like stopped at like every event that I've vendored to,
Yeah,
and just big shout out to him. He's awesome
absolutely.
and really appreciate his support.
Yeah, no, Reese is good people. But yeah, he's damn good at it, and he definitely he's one of those guys. He always hypes up his friends, so always appreciated. Um, but yeah, so conventions, just the cost alone is very pricey. So you figure right out of the gate, I'm looking down the barrel of a $525 bill, so I can't even count profit until I make more than $525.
Yeah.
And that's like some years you don't get much more than that. Like a few times, I've only gotten like $50 over my expense. So it's like, yeah, I made profit, but I worked all weekend and lost a
Yeah.
lot of sleep for $50.
Yeah.
And it's like, granted, I still had a lot of fun. I had a blast. I always enjoy myself at a con, but
Yeah.
sometimes monetarily it's a little tough. Now, there are conventions where I have made a killing and I was extremely grateful, but those are few and far between. For most
Yeah.
average vendors, you're lucky if you make your money back and like a little bit of profit and just have a good time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Like if you're going in it expecting like to make a bunch of money, like sorry, it's like
Yeah,
not really gonna happen. It's definitely more for the exposure, the experience, and getting the word out.
absolutely. And don't get me wrong, that's not to say you can't have some
Oh
amazing
no, no.
sales.
Yeah, I've
But
definitely had some amazing ones, but
oh
they're
yeah,
like you said, it's far and few in between.
yep. I think the first pair of horror, I I made more than I was expecting. I did not expect that convention to be as well attended as it was because it was such a small convention. But holy crap, like everybody came out for it, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And plus it wasn't a very expensive con. Like those
Oh,
guys, they really hooked up the local vendors,
yeah.
and gave us good table deals. Gave us great deals for like booth help. Like I think I spent like all of $15 to have like 3 extra badges. Like they were really cool
Yep.
with the workers.
Yeah.
Um,
It
and then
was our first event for Western New York Horror Crew.
no, that was 2019, right?
Yep.
Yep, I remember that. That was a great show. That was when Tom Atkins was right across from us.
Yeah. Yep. That was so sweet.
Now there's another example of mingling, because for anyone who doesn't know what the para horror convention was, it was both a horror convention and a paranormal convention where they were doing ghost tours of the Buffalo Terminal. So like every what was it, like 20 minutes or so they would do another tour. I think it
And
was like,
the haunted house too.
oh, that's right, I forgot about the haunted house that year.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it was like every 20 minutes to a half hour they would do a new tour. So a big chunk of the convention floor would clear out to go on the tour. And whenever that would happen and the convention floor was slow, Tom Atkins would like get up and start perusing the tables. And it was great because he came over a couple of times and just shot the shit with me, Maurice, and Tara. And it was just like, holy shit, I'm talking to Tom Atkins. This is awesome.
He was fantastic. And then you know what else I loved? He remembered every single person's name. Even the guy that was bringing him water, he remembered his name. And that was awesome.
Total class act with Tom. He was a really good guy. And the thing that I liked about him is I was watching him interact with folks like all weekend, and he was one of those celebrities that, even like he would go from he looked kind of tired to a person would come up to his table and he would light right up and he would just start talking and would be super approachable. Just shout out to guys that are like that. The celebs that you can tell are enjoying themselves. They're my favorites.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally, definitely. We need another convention like that.
I know. I was actually talking to the two folks that had set it up. They come to Terrors, and they were talking about Parahor, and I'm like, please bring it back. I miss it. They just started laughing. They're like, yeah, if we could, we would. But I guess the terminal is no longer renting out for conventions, so they haven't found a new place to venue at, which I really hope they do, because they did good. That show was great.
I commented on the Buffalo terminal, and they did comment back to me saying they were thinking about it.
Oh God, I hope.
I don't know if that was just to end the conversation, or if it was like legit, like they're thinking of allowing people to vendor there again.
I really hope they do, because legitimately, that was one of the best conventions in the local area.
Such beautiful place too.
Oh yeah, no, it's a gorgeous building.
Yep. So for your setup, do you have a layout that you stick to for each con? Do you have a way you pack things up to try to go?
Yeah, that's oh God, packing up is a pain.
This is setup. Don't worry about packing up yet.
well, and that's the thing. Like they kind of go hand in hand, because like with the setup, I usually have the wire cubes. Like I don't know how to describe them. They're basically just wire racks that you can build into cubes using like little connector pieces. You'll see them at a lot of conventions. People have stuff hanging all over them. A couple years in a row, I tried doing a like almost like a trellis, where I'd have two stands on either side of the table, and then it would go over the top. And the gravity and the weight of the prints and stuff clipped to them has definitely proved problematic time and time again, where the trellis would start to dip and slip over the weekend. Right. So now I tend to do I do two towers that are shaped kind of like a V. So there's like part of the tower will be facing out on either edge of the table, and then part of it will be facing forward on either edge of the table, and I'll clip my prints to those. And then I usually have two bins at either side of the table with original sketches, and then like cheaper prints. And then the center part of the table, I'll do anything that I have, like stickers, bookmarks, books. Like I have some children's books, some comic books, and then little things like that. Every once in a while, I'll have some of shout out to my buddy Josh with Pickman's Vinyls. I'll have some of his minis with me. Not every con, but sometimes I have them out, and when I do, those always sell pretty well. But yeah, it's a very simple table layout these days. I don't try to go too crazy, just because space is limited. And you want to pull eyes in. So if it's over cluttered, people get a little like nervous to touch anything because they don't want to mess anything up. So if you have it kind of like, I found that verticality helps. Like if you have a lot of stuff on display vertically on either side of the table, but an open layout in the middle, people are more like apt to come up to the table and start browsing.
I like magazine racks. I picked up a few magazine racks, and those are really nice.
Tara has a few of those for her prints, and I keep looking into them, thinking like maybe I should try that. But the problem I have is like I said, the space, and I still want to have stuff being vertical on either side of the table. So like then if I put the magazine racks, I'd also kind of be blocking off that middle part where I sit. So I'm still trying to find a happy medium. But
I feel like it is. It's like this dance that, like, this next event I'm doing, there's actually going to be a little bit more vendors than they had originally thought. So we're down to a 6-foot table and a magazine rack. So I'm like, okay, what can I bring? What can I do? Kind of going off some other people's ideas and looking up at, like, okay, how can you do it? Like, and I feel like a lot of times if you kind of wait till you're there, then you either get stuck with a lot of stuff you're not putting out, or like kind of spreading stuff out too much.
Absolutely. And that's the other thing, is like deciding what to bring. Because I know, like, when I was doing para horror, I definitely leaned more into my horror art, because it's like, okay, that's the crowd that's going to be there. Like, I still always have my my pop culture fan art, my pop culture confessionals, and my little goofy superhero drawings and stuff. But for the most part, I would stick to my horror stuff. Now at Nickel City, which is more of a general comic convention, comic pop culture convention, I try to always have some comic work, some cartoon work, and depending on whatever the popular movie of the time is, I'll try to have some kind of fan art. So like last year, the newest animated Spider-Man movie, it was Across the Spider-Verse, was out. So I did a drawing of Spider-Punk, thinking,
yeah, that was great.
Thank you. But that was like the whole point of doing that was, okay, this is super popular right now. I loved the movie. Let me do a piece of fan art that'll maybe grab some eyes. And then same thing with, I did a Gravity Falls piece because I had been rewatching Gravity Falls, and that's always a prominent thing at conventions. You always see someone dressed up like Bill Cipher. So I was like, let me do a piece of that. But then a couple years prior, when Detective Pikachu came out, I made sure to do 2 Detective Pikachu pieces, but then I did mini prints that were, it basically cost me about $1 for 4. So I printed off a bunch of those to give away as freebies for any kid that came to the table. So anytime a little kid came to the table, I was like, hey, do you like Pokemon? And if they said, yeah, I'm like, here, grab one of these for free. So, I was giving those away to try to, get people to look more at the table. And it worked.
That's a huge key. Is like, now that we kind of discussed setup, we definitely jump into the flesh of like working that table, getting people drawn in, how you want to get dressed, how you're acting and everything. And a huge thing is have something for the kids,
Absolutely.
Even if it's a quick, just like candy bowl, just like you want something for that kid to at least be distracted for a few minutes while the parents looking at, something that they may be interested in.
Right. And the candy bowl thing now, that is something I started doing at Para Horror, just because I was like, oh, it's Halloween, or it's spooky themed, so I'm going to do like a whole Halloween thing. And I had the little pumpkin with all this candy in it. It was like, please take one. And people would come over like, oh, cool, I get a free piece of candy. I'm like, yeah, help yourself. And it was great there. I then did it at Nickel City, and just had the pumpkin bowl there. And I had some very awkward individuals again and again and again come up to the table. My favorite one was this girl who walked up to, it looked like she couldn't have been older than maybe 20. She was young. She's got big old glasses, like just, comes walking up. I don't know if she was cosplaying as a character or not, but she looks at me and goes, this free? And I went, yeah, help yourself. She's like, cool. And just sat there staring straight at me and just eating pieces of candy, like unwrapping them, putting the wrappers in her pocket, and just eating, never breaking eye contact. And I was like, this is so awkward. I don't know what to do.
And I feel like, she may not have known that, like, hey, man, you're just supposed to take one.
Right, exactly.
Like, you're supposed to take it and move on.
She legit ate like 10 pieces.
Simple candy etiquette has not been passed down generations.
And like, I didn't want to be rude and be like, you're only allowed one, because like I didn't really care. But
and like, you forgot to write it down. You didn't write it down.
But it was the staring. I'm like, I'm so uncomfortable right now.
She was actually stealing your soul. I'm sorry that you're 5 years older now than you were before.
Exactly. Oh my God. It was, but see, and that's the thing, like, these are my people. I'm not disparaging anyone. I'm not,
Oh,
talking smack about anyone. I love
yeah, yeah.
conventions. I love con goers. But anyone who has ever been to a con understands there are going to be some socially awkward individuals there.
Mhm.
And now I feel more bad for my partner Tara, because there are some very socially awkward men, and she is a very attractive young woman. Um, these people will be very obvious about their like of her, and
Mhm.
it's sometimes very awkward. But because I've definitely seen some guys who are like, they'll come up and be like, "Oh, you look like this girl from this anime," and they'll show up and she's like, "Oh, okay, cool, thanks." And then they just won't stop talking to her.
They come back with another picture and then another comment, and
Yep.
they're going down a rabbit hole that you're still looking down the edge of.
And that's the thing, you're trying to be nice because, like,
Yeah,
they mean
yeah.
no harm by it, but
Oh,
it's like, it's super uncomfortable.
and some honestly don't pick up on social cues. And like
Right.
you and I have had these conversations before with like more female than males being in that position where they're in the open, they're trying to sell their stuff, they're trying to get conversations going, they are trapped. And there are some people who intentionally or non intentionally
Mm-hmm.
kind of get you stuck, and then you're like, what do I do? It's
And
that
that's the
balance
thing.
between wanting them to come there and talk to you and at the same time feeling safe, you know?
Right. And that's the thing entirely is like, you know, a lot, like I said, a lot of them do not mean any harm, but there are the
Yeah,
ones
yeah,
that
definitely.
take it too far, and it's like, you want to be polite, you want to be nice, but you kind of want to be like, all right, buddy, come on, there's boundaries. Like that, like, watch what you're saying.
Yeah.
Don't get too touchy feely, because
Mhm.
there's definitely been some guys who will ask if they could get a photo with her,
Mhm.
and when she's in cosplay, it's understandable. When she's not in
Yeah.
cosplay, it's kind of like, why? Like, it's like, that's a little
Yeah.
awkward, man.
Yeah.
Especially when they're not buying anything and they're just like, oh, can I get a photo with you? It's like, that's weird. Come on. It's true. Oh, man.
And that too, going back to how you want to dress for an event like that.
Right.
Outdoor events obviously are going to be dressing warmer and stuff. Indoor events, I feel like you kind of have options. And like, I feel like for a lot of women, they feel if they wear something that shows a little bit more. But I also found that with women, like, if I wear a really cool horror shirt too, then I'll
Mhm.
also be bringing, conversation in.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's that always that balance of like how do you dress? How do you make yourself seem more approachable because you're trying to get people to approach you because you want to engage in that conversation and have them interested in what you're selling or what you created.
Right. Well, and I think that's one of those things that why you see a lot of vendors do cosplay is because
Mm-hmm.
it's a way to get people talking to you, even if they're not looking at your product. If they look up and
Yeah.
they see a character they recognize, they're gonna say like, "Hey, cool costume or whatever," and then you can parlay that into being like, "Well, hey, look at this. If you like this, and then
Yeah.
try to
Yeah.
get someone over there."
I always loved about like people doing cosplays and stuff, just kind of like having that ability to show your love for something for a day and just be goofy with it and have other people like be goofy with it too and be like, oh yeah, I totally get that. Especially the ones that are really subtle, you know,
Right.
that you can't
Absolutely.
really tell and you're like, Herbert West over there. Nice.
Yep. But sometimes that can backfire because I know and Tara's going to kill me because I cannot remember Johnny Depp's character's name from Secret Window.
Oh yeah.
But she dressed up like him. It was a fantastic cosplay. Like, she looked exactly like the dude, and like she even had the little thing of Doritos like in her robe because he was eating Doritos in that one scene. It was fantastic, but she was dressed up like him, and everybody that came to the table, they were like, "Who are you supposed to be?" And it was like, I think only like three people were like, "Oh shit, Secret Window." But even though she looked it was perfect. It was such a good cosplay. But I think because it was such an obscure reference, a lot of people, like, I feel like if we were at Para Horror, more people would have got it. But being at Nickel City, I think less people, were able to get the cosplay reference.
There's definitely more high traffic of like mixed nerds in that kind of atmosphere,
Absolutely. And I know, like, I'm usually pretty good at guessing cosplays. Like, that's one of the things I love to do at conventions, when I'm just sitting at my table is looking at all the different cosplayers that go by. And, if I can, I'll usually try to get a photo of them. So I'll ask them, like, hey, can I take a photo real quick? That's another thing, like, people often forget. Like, ask if you can take a photo.
Yeah,
don't just snap photos.
And touching, especially if you're going to touch somebody's costume or something, like, please just ask.
Exactly.
and any of that stuff, just ask.
And that's the thing. I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the whole, sometimes you're going to deal with people who are just a bit socially awkward. It's not malicious. It's just, it's just unawares, because I've seen a lot of people, both, young, old, male, female, do the thing where they run up and they, like, will run up and grab someone's costume, like, oh, this is so cool. And it's like, oh, you don't know how fragile that is. You don't know this person. Like, don't do that.
It's just a reaction to being excited,
Exactly.
Like, oh.
Like, you could tell it wasn't them trying to do anything bad. They were super psyched. So, but yeah, always ask for consent before you take someone's photo. So anytime I see a cool photo, I usually try to, or a cool cosplay, I try to call it out. I'll be like, hey, Ghost Rider, or like, hey, Galvatron, come here.
Especially, because you're behind the table, so you got to get them to, like, come to you.
Right. But that's one of my favorite things is seeing cosplays that are unique and different, or are very obscure. And, like, so I love it when people do that, but it is a bummer when you have a really good costume and very few people get
it. Yeah, definitely.
But
how do you feel that you promote for, like, when you do events? Do you do a lot of self-promoting, or do you kind of just be like, all right, I'm doing this event and hoping that kind of the person that's putting it on has got stuff out there?
Surprisingly, I don't really promote much at all when I'm doing a convention. I'll post on, like, Facebook and Instagram, and because a lot of my followers on Instagram that aren't like my friends, that are just like people I know on Instagram, that are in the local area, they will come to conventions. So I'll post on there like, hey, I'm going to be at such and such a show. And I always do a little thing with my Instagram followers where I'll say, like, hey, I'm going to be at Nickel City. If you come by and you mention my Instagram, you get a free print. So I've had several.
Nice.
So several followers will come up and be like, hey, Zarakis, like, because they'll know me from Instagram. They're like, pick what you want, and then they'll get a free print. But that's really the only promotion I'll do, because again, Facebook and Instagram, most of the people that follow me are friends and family who already kind of know, hey, I'm going to do this. But yeah, when I'm at the con, I'm very social. Like, I try to engage people in conversation. If people, like, nod over at my table, I'm like, hey, how's it going? I always start off with the same thing. Feel free to look through anything you want. Thumb through whatever you see on the table, because some people are also afraid to touch anything. Like, they don't want to mess up your display. So I immediately let them know, go ahead, rifle through, have that. Like, that's why I'm here. And that'll be enough 9 times out of 10 to engage people in conversation. Like, they'll start talking. They'll be like, oh, this is cool. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And then I'll have, like, hey, you enjoying the con, stuff like that. If they're in cosplay, I'll bring up, like, what they're dressed as. Be like, oh, that's really cool. And then
we'll get to flyer, something.
Yeah. And then some people, like, the moment you say, like, hey, how's it going? They're like, nope. And they take off. They are not, they don't want to talk. And I get that, too. I've definitely been that guy walking down Artist Alley just trying to make my way to the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. That's the worst, because you're like, I'm sorry, I have to go pee.
I'm not trying to be rude, I just really need to pee.
This is my one break.
Right? So it is tough. That's also one of the reasons that I will try at the start of a convention, before the convention opens, I will try to go to all of the tables around me, and maybe not introduce myself if they're busy, but like if they aren't busy, I'll introduce myself. We'll chit chat for a moment, so people kind of recognize me as like, oh, that's another vendor. He's over here. Like, so when I am running down the aisle to be like, I gotta pee, no one's like, hey, come look at my wares,
Yeah. Yeah, I like to do that too, just to be like, hey, I got some extra supplies. I've done this a few times. Like,
Yep.
if you need anything, here. And like a lot of times, like some people that could be next to you could be like your biggest cheerleader for the event,
Right.
And you didn't even know that until like you just started setting up and like talking and stuff.
And I've absolutely had that happen. I remember specifically when me and Ben went to Cincy Comic Con, the first year that we went to Cincinnati Comic Con. We had these guys next to us. I want to say the guy was promoting a kid's book that he wrote, and his friend, who is his booth help, he was there cosplaying as various characters. Like the first day, I think he was Spider-Man. Second day was Flash, and I forget what he was the third day. I think Jack Sparrow. Yeah, no, he had cool costumes each day, but he bought a bunch of my pop culture confessionals because that was the year that I debuted them. And anyone who came down the row, like after they looked at their table, he'd be like, dude, check this table out. You got to check this guy's work. And he was just hyping me up the whole weekend. And he definitely got me some great sales. And then I've definitely had that happen where, you talk to the other people in the area, and somebody like down the row will be like, maybe they don't have a Spider-Man piece, but they're like, oh, hey, this guy over here has one. Come check his work out. And they'll come running people over, which is fantastic. So, you definitely have to talk to your neighbors.
Yeah. When we did UBCon, we got shorted a table, and I had like brought enough stuff for 2 tables, and we were kind of like talking to both of the people when we first got there and unpacking, shooting the shit and everything. And then when we found out they happened, each of them gave us half a table. So then we had another table. Cool. Yeah. So it was really nice, that they were like, "Oh, hey, that's fine. Let's make this work,"
That happened to me at Buffalo Comic Con the one year. I think they might have oversold on tables because my table was nowhere to be found on the planner. And, I showed them my receipt and my confirmation and all that. I was like, guys, like, I paid for this. And so they were like, all right, we'll get you a table. So they set me in. But then there was another girl who showed up, and apparently she had the same issue. So I was like, you know what, here. So come here. You can share the table with me. So I split my table in half, and she hopped on with me, and we ended up just hyping each other's work up the whole night. So and it turned out to be a great show for both of us, but it was like, it sucked because, whether it be somebody had just an oversight or poor planning or whatever it is, they clearly did not have enough tables for the amount of people that they sold to. Yeah. So we just made it work. We're like, look, it's already here. We're both here. We got our stuff. We should both have a full table, but F it, let's just make the best of this. And we both sold great. So I ain't going to complain about that. But sometimes you got to work with what you got. But then other times you make great friends out of it. Like my friend Desiree Tedesco, a great artist. Shout out to her. She does fantastic like earrings and jewelry designs, really cool stuff. In fact, I got a great pair of Bigfoot earrings from her for Jessica. Yeah, fantastic artist. But one of the many Buffalo cons that I saw her at, her and her husband were there, and I was setting up my table. And for whatever reason, it was my old wire racks. I replaced them since, but I could not get the clips to work. My clips were just falling apart. So I was like, I couldn't get my setup going. And she came over with a bag of zip ties, and she's like, hey, I don't know if this will help, but I had this happen once before where my racks were falling apart and I zip tied them together. So I was able to put the clip on and then zip tie it, and it held. So she ended up saving me for that, for my setup. And, we've been good friends ever since. So, so sometimes, you meet great people.
I feel like it can, especially like at the beginning of the con and everything, it definitely like can embrace the anger in you and whatnot, and can be like a really aggravating. But then once you like get in it, and then some of those connections that you make with some of those people that like help you, like always try to at least look at that. At least try to like go talk to people. Don't
100%.
try to like sit behind your booth and just work that or whatever. Try to make those conversations and everything, because I think it definitely makes a huge difference in the experience that you're going to get out of it.
Oh, definitely, and that's the thing. Me and Tara both have had this experience, and I'm sure you have as well. Because you're a lot like me in the fact that you're going to talk to people. You're not going to sit there and wait.
No.
But yeah, me and Tara, like we engage, we try to speak, but we've had those people tabled across from us, or in some cases next to us, who do not engage, who sit there looking down at their book or looking down at their phone. Maybe they're nervous,
Mhm.
maybe they're anxious about a crowd. Who knows what the reason is?
Yeah.
But they don't engage, and then they don't get the sales. And like there was this one time, and I don't want to call anybody out, but there's one time in particular at Para Horror, I felt so bad because this lady across from us had amazing work. Like, it was beautiful work. It was all this like these handmade like goggles and like a lot of steampunk style stuff, but it was all handmade, very gorgeous stuff. But everyone that came over to her table, she wouldn't engage with, and like they would try, they'd be like, oh, how much does this cost? And she would just point at the sign like, oh, it's this. She's like very standoffish, so people would walk away from her table, and I felt so bad because there's so many people were interested, but I think she lost sales because she couldn't talk to these guys. And again, I get it, it could be a plethora of reasons why you don't want to talk to somebody, but it is a shame because when you are vendoring, you also kind of have to be a showman. You have to kind of be like that carnival barker. You need to talk.
And if you know that you can't, you need somebody that can be there with you that can.
Yes, you need your barker.
Yeah.
That's really what it is.
I mean, even if you do have like issues where you just have a hard time talking to people, or just standoffish, whatnot, like if you can at least get somebody there that can like help you make up for that, then like it's nice because you can get your stuff out there. And most of the people that are a little standoffish stuff do make some beautiful artwork.
Oh yeah, and
that's the world should definitely see.
And that's the sad thing, is a lot of times the artists that are the most shy tend to have beautiful work, like gorgeous work. But then on the other hand, you do have the ones that are kind of snobby. I've definitely encountered artists.
Mixed.
Oh yeah. I've definitely encountered artists that are just flat out rude to people, and I've watched them be nasty with folks. I'm like, Jesus, why are you here then? Like, don't be nasty to people. Like, you're trying to sell your wares, and they're clearly interested. Don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
That goes with everything. Just don't be a jerk.
I mean, that's kind of like mine and your stance on the world. Like, just don't be a jerk.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody likes a jerk. Come on. But no, as far as pack up, you had mentioned that one is funny because I look like a hobo when I come to a convention because I don't have like any real organization. I have a dolly and like 2 Tupperware bins that a bunch of stuff is crammed into, like boxes of all shapes. I have different, like I have a little rack where I put my bookmarks. And then I have a bunch of boxes that are like comic book boxes, usually short boxes where I'll have my prints. So I'll have this dolly and I'll have some beat up old Tupperware bins, some random boxes with wire racks in them, and then comic book boxes all strapped to a dolly. And I come running over to the table. Like, I don't have much organization when it comes to that.
The worst part about Breakdown 2 is that everyone's trying to get out at once.
Oh, yep.
So it's just like, run, just for like the door, the spots.
And you never fully pack up the way you know you should. It's just like, get it in the box. Just put it away.
Come on, we got like 10 minutes.
Yup.
Because a lot of times, too, I mean, they're getting ready to close the actual venue, so they kind of, want everybody out within a certain time and stuff. And a lot of times it's really late because it's after the event, or and it's just always like You should put it back really nicely, but you always just jam it in there because you're like, I'll deal with it at home.
Right, and then you won't deal with it at home. You'll deal with it at home months later.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now because I have an event on April 27th, and I got to get these con bags ready again. That too, the con bag where you need your tape, your extra flyers, your markers, price tags.
I also always have hand sanitizer because everybody is aware of the con crud where people will get. I mean, you have a lot of people in an area. Some people will have the sniffles. Some people will be sick and not know it. And you're shaking hands, you're chatting, all that, and it's very easy to catch a cold or catch some kind of stomach bug or something at a convention. So yeah, I'm always doing the hand sanitizer. And I always do the emergency. I'll drink a little vitamin C boost before I go because I'm like, don't get a cold, man. Don't get a cold. Yeah. I don't want one.
Yeah. At least it's not as bad as the Disney COVID.
Oh, God, yeah. Thank God for that. Well, I have definitely gotten hit a few conventions where I've gone to a show and then that weekend I end up coming down with some kind of upper respiratory thing and then there's been times where I've gone to a convention and I was sick. So like I would be telling people like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but I have the sniffles. I don't want to pass it on to you, because you can't control when you get a cold, and if you already paid for this, you're going.
Yeah. So. Yeah, totally. Because a lot of it's non-refundable, which I completely understand. Like I know that who's running these things and everything, they have to protect themselves too. So that's completely cool. But It's just like, it's, yeah, and then it's funny how like society like looks at it too. They're like, oh, they think since you like have this booth at this event and everything that like you make all this money there.
Oh my God! Let's dispel those rumors. Jesus.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
The amount of times. Okay, so I've worked at. I'm not going to name my place of employment, but I've worked at a hospital for 24 years. And one of the great parts about my job is that when it's quiet, because I'm not medical, I work in communications. When it is very quiet, I can do stuff like draw. And there's not a single supervisor or administrator that has said otherwise. In fact, a lot of them will be like, "Oh, that's really cool." Like they'll comment on it. So I've been drawing there for years. It's one of my few fringe benefits. But people will see my artwork and hear that I'm doing a convention, and they're like, "Why are you working here? Like, why aren't you doing something?" Like, because it is extremely hard to break into the entertainment industry.
Yep.
It's not just having a little bit of talent and a little bit of gumption. That's not enough.
My favorite is when people be like, I'll be like, oh yeah, I also own a business. It's like a nerd thrift store where I do events and everything, and they're like, oh, so why are you still working a job too? And it's like, well, I don't make any money from it. Well, what's the point of having a business if you don't make any money from it? like it's my fault,
Right? And that's the thing. It's like you're still making money, but you're not making enough to live on. Like, and I feel like that's what people don't understand about the quote unquote like side hustle or like the whole side hustle culture that we have now, where like my job
mainstream. It's on commercials. They talk about side hustle now. Like, how crazy is that?
We could get into a whole politically charged topic, I'm sure, talking about how bad it is that our economy survives on that.
But anyhow, so you were saying,
yeah, exactly. I'm like, that does suck, but I will say, like, people don't understand that the side hustle, like, a lot of it is just for extra money. It's for like, oh, let me have a little packed away for a rainy day. Like, I know for me, conventions do two things for me. One, it allows me to do another convention. Because if I don't make my money back, then now I have to think, do I really want to spend money on this next convention? So if I make my money back, it allows me to do another convention. And then a lot of times when I use my money that I make at a con is the same things I would use if I just paid to go to the con. So I get celebrity photo ops. Right. I buy artwork and cool like trinkets and stuff that other artists have made. I'll get, maybe there's that toy that I've really been wanting. Oh, there's that new NECA Jason. Let me pick that up. So it's stuff that I would spend money on normally, but this way it's I make that little bit of extra. Like I do the work, I make the extra money, and then I can go ahead and afford to do my nerdy things that I want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I
And
wish it
that's
made a
nice.
lot more.
It's
I
so
mean,
funny that like people assume that it does,
mhm.
or that we like kind of live in like in a society where people are saying like, well, if you're putting effort and all this time into something, then you should be profiting from it, which we are.
Exactly.
We are
Yeah.
profiting from it. We're enjoying it and we're doing something fun and spending time with friends and learning about other artists and stuff. It's not always about like, am I going to profit off this? Which
Oh yeah.
unfortunately I wish it was because I could pay more bills.
Same. And
But, that'd be nice for everybody. But
that's exactly where I am. Like any kind of side hustle I've ever had, it's always been, for a little bit of extra money. Like there's been a few times where a few years where I've made enough doing side hustles that I could use it for major purchases. Um, but those years I put in so much work. When you break it down by
yeah,
hour worked, it's like, is it really worth it?
yeah,
I know, when I'm sure you remember this, when I used to do the money figurines from Kid Robot, I used to do custom orders for that, and there were a few years in a row where I made several $1,000s doing customs. Um, which was great because my hours were cut back at work. So I was making a lot less money at my normal job, and I was ramping up on my commission work to try to like pay bills.
yeah,
And but
yeah,
the problem with that is I was working around the clock. I had no free time.
yeah.
So you figure, because I would be putting like anywhere between 20 and 30 hours into any one of these customs, but I was only making like $100. You know
Which
what I'm saying?
definitely like wasn't worth your hourly rate.
Exactly.
Because even as
Exactly.
an artist, you should have an hourly rate. You are putting in effort, you are putting in time, and which is so funny that a lot of times, like, it doesn't get seen as that,
Hmm.
and it gets
And,
seen in like a different way.
and see, and that's one of the biggest problems that I know a lot of younger artists run into, because I've talked to a lot of people who have not had like the con going experience, or have not been getting their stuff out there a lot yet, like people who are just starting out. And one of the things I always try to tell them is, for me personally, I look at my cost for supplies first. I go, okay, how much did it cost me to buy the equipment, buy the stuff that I need to make the product that they want?
Yes,
So
because you don't think about that,
exactly.
and that's
And
something important to think of.
well, yeah, because I mean, that's cutting right into your profits. If you're not if you're not if you're not getting enough pay for what you've spent, then it's a lose-lose situation. And then especially when you have to mail the item, because that's another thing, is like shipping costs are ridiculous. So you figure you have to make sure that that's covered as well. So, but then I have to take into consideration, like, how much is someone willing to spend? And how I tend to do that is, what would I be willing to spend on this type of thing? And if what it's going like what if I break it down where my cost, or what I feel like I should charge, is more than I would be willing to spend, I sometimes won't take the commission, because
Yeah,
I feel like it's unfair of me to ask for more than I'd be willing to spend, but
hmm,
just the cost of entry makes me ask that amount. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's very tough breaking that down. It's a lot easier for me when it's just a simple like commission, like a drawing commission, because then I can break it down by like, okay, it took me this many hours. And
yeah.
like, that's a lot easier. But
And doing
yeah,
an event, it's the same thing. You're prepping for that, that con or that event. You're putting in a certain amount of money for your supplies and everything that you need to get ready for that. And like, none of that's really kind of like factored in because we're doing something we enjoy.
yep. And
You know?
that's where it gets dangerous, because
Yeah.
that's how you start losing money, because and that's the sad part about this. With it
Mhm.
is something we enjoy, it is something that we want to have fun with, but the sad reality of it is we still have to pay attention to cost, and it sucks that we have to look at it like, a shrewd businessman at times, but you have to, otherwise
you still have to get paid for your time.
Exactly, and you can't undercut yourself, you know. So I know, like, with this past Nickel City Con, I felt terrible having to up my prices. For years, and I mean a good freaking 5 to 10 years, at conventions for 8x10 prints, I've sold for $5, and then for the 5x5 prints that I would do, I would sell for $3. And then, like, I would do package deals, like, okay, I'll go 3 prints for 10, or I'll go like 4 prints for 5 or whatever, depending on the size of the print. But because my printing costs have gone up and all my packaging costs have gone up, like, everything has gone up incrementally over the last 5 years, that in order for me to make any kind of profit, I had to up my cost to $10 for the 8x10s and $5 for the 5x5s, or 5x3s. I'm sorry. I had to up the price. Now, I did try to do still discounts for package deals, like, hey, if you buy so many, I'm going to give you so many for free, that type of thing.
Because they're already at least giving you money towards those expenses that you just did.
Right, and I kind of break it down by how much addition to the cost are these freebies going to add. So I always try to break it down like that. But I mean, I still made my money back, so it's not like I was operating at a loss. But I personally felt bad just because I've never charged that much. And it's tough because I know I've seen other artists do the same exact thing. Artists who had their prices pretty much set year after year after year. And then last year, with the rising cost of everything, people all had to raise their prices. I was talking to my friend Amy, and she was saying the same thing. Like, it was tough because, she doesn't want to charge too much for stickers. That's like one of the impulse buys. But
yeah, totally.
Because it gets so costly now to print them, it's like, well, I got to up my cost or my price a little bit. And yeah, it's going to impact how many people buy, but it's a necessary evil, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I'm hoping that people will listen to this episode and kind of realize everything that goes into, like, especially from like our side, from the vendor's perspective and the artist perspective. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, and that's the thing. Like, I was a patron for well over a decade before I was ever a vendor.
Yeah.
So I definitely saw it from. Yeah. I know you and I went to a bunch of shows. And,
Toronto always usually has some good stuff. I haven't been up there in a while.
Oh, Fan Expo. Is it? Yeah, I think the last time I went to Fan Expo was 2008. But I mean, I went to that several years in a row. I used to go to Buffalo Comic Con every year. I used to go to Wizard World in Chicago. But yeah, I was always a patron. And I always saw, like, from the other side of the floor, like, and that's what I always try to keep in mind as a vendor is, like, when I was a patron, what things did I dislike that vendors did toward me? Like the pressured salesman type of thing. Or, the people that are like, you're just walking by and they're like, hey, you want to buy this? Oh, come on. Don't you like my work? Like, that kind of stuff.
The guilting.
Yeah. So I try to make sure I don't do any of those things that I hated as a customer, while still having to engage with people. So it is that fine dance that you mentioned earlier that you have to do. But yeah, I'm sorry, I cut you off. You were going to say.
Oh, no, you were fine. No, that was actually great. That was kind of encompassing everything like I was going to say. So thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, no problem.
Chef's kiss. So now leading us into me asking you, my guest, what has been your favorite thing of this week? Could be anything. A book, a movie, a comic, a conversation, a situation.
Well, I think my favorite thing this week is finding out that my eye was healthy, because I had a little scare. I have a really bad floater in my left eye, but I had blurred vision, so I was a little terrified what was going on. And after the doctor poked a needle in my eye, which was terrifying, I found out I'm perfectly healthy and I just have a floater and I need better glasses. So I'm like, okay, cool, I'm good. But as far as like pop culture fandom stuff,
I mean, being in our 40s, that is like could be a favorite thing of the week because like right. That's good. You can see. It's kind of awesome. You got a few more years of that.
Right? I'm like, because I got to tell you, the two things that have always scared me the most is not having the use of my eyes or my hands. As someone who is an artist, a writer, someone who enjoys reading, watching movies, playing video games, sculpting, all of these things I need my eyes and hands for. So I already got carpal tunnel in both wrists. Don't tell me my eyes are going on me,
Yeah.
But I think as far as my favorite thing this week for pop culture stuff is I received a package I had ordered from Super 7 where I have Tarman and Trash from Return of the Living Dead in reaction figure form. I'm looking at them on my desk right now, and they are they're beautifully made. And then I also got the pre-comics code Wave 2 figures of this like creepy little Wolfman looking dude, this awesome zombie, and it's like some kind of weird ghoul. And they're just great horror figures. These are the type of figures that if I had as a kid, I would have went crazy for them.
It's so funny because my favorite thing of the week is I got the new character that Monster High released for the Mattel Creations, the reveal.
Oh, nice! I was looking at her.
Yeah, Lenore.
Yeah. I was thinking of getting her for Jess, but I sent her the link, and she was like, "Oh, I kind of want her, but because she's super, super picky on the characters, but that is such a cool looking doll. I saw that."
Yeah, she's super awesome. And then Mattel Creations website has a video. Oh my god, it's so fantastic. So, it feels the little girl goth heart. But on there, they talk to the designer and all the other artists that went into creating the doll, and you're having a gothic tea party in a garden where they came up with the idea for the doll, and all of them are dressed in goth discussing the doll designs.
Oh, that's rad. That is freaking rad.
Sculptor, it's the box designer, it's the designer of the actual like doll, and then it's the girl that designed the clothes.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, as a guy collector, I gotta say, like, the Monster High dolls have been impressive since day one. Like, you've always showed them to me, and I've always thought they were really cool. And then, of course, Jess got into them. And I remember I used to watch the little webisode cartoons with her. I know,
they're so cute.
It's adorable. But no, I mean, the designers who work on that line are really freaking talented. There's a lot of cool designs in that line.
And they love it. Like, it's like their passion and their hobby, and like they're doing it because like, they have a love for it.
Right. And and I always find it funny how and I know I'm just talking stereotypes here for a minute, but I always find it funny how like people are like, oh, creepy stuff, that's not girly, and it's like, yes, it totally is. Like every time I see like a creepy doll line, I know so many women that love it, and rightfully so, because it's awesome.
Yeah, it was all women that worked on the project too for those dolls. Like, it's crazy.
That's why I always found that funny when people are like, oh, ladies don't like scary stuff. I'm like, the hell they don't. Like, literally every woman in my family, with the exception of my mom, loves horror movies and creepy comic books and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so I think that's funny.
Stereotype.
Exactly, and that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's a stupid stereotype.
Yeah, which I mean, stereotypes really are for like comedy, and when someone's just going to the extreme.
Exactly.
Otherwise, that shit ain't true.
Right? So frustrating.
All right, but we should start wrapping it up here. So I just want to say thank you for listening, and don't forget to check out radpantheon.com. It's a super team of pop culture craze creative types like me and Mike and so many others. And also go to westernnewyorkhorrorcrew.com, and that's WNY or HORROR, and the crew as KRUE.com to check out our nerd thrift store. And then, Mike, did you want to give us some shout outs?
Yeah, sure. Check out the Boogeyman's Closet on both Facebook and Instagram. We are currently taking a little hiatus, but we have, I think, roughly 270-something episodes backlogged. So there's still plenty to listen to.
Go back and listen. So much.
And yeah, you mentioned the Rad Pantheon. The other shows that I do are on there as well. Raised by Rentals and Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash. Both are a lot of fun. Those are not going on hiatus. Just the Boogeyman's Closet while I gear up for convention season and for other projects that I have in the works. So I just got to meet some deadlines before I can get back to podcasting.
Understandable, needs to be done sometimes, but I like how that you were very active with letting everybody know about it. I know the past few episodes you've recorded, you've kind of mentioned, hey, we're taking this break, this is the reason, and it's really nice that you kept that line of communication too.
Yeah, I didn't want people to think like, oh, it's done now, because I know personally I've listened to podcasts where it was like I'd be listening every week and then suddenly it was gone and I'd be like, oh, well, I guess it's not coming back. And I sometimes would unsubscribe because it's like it hasn't been there for 6 months, so I guess there's no new episodes. And then find out, a year or two later, like, oh yeah, they came back, but it was like 7 months after I unsubscribed, type of thing. It's oh crap, so
just missed it.
Yeah, so that's why I always try to be like, no, we're still coming back, I promise.
Nice. And then we have an upcoming event that's going to be a movie screening at the screening room of Class of 1984, and I will be vendoring outside for that event, and it's April 27th. It's a Saturday, and I think it's around 7 p.m., but if you search for Silk Screams, you can get tickets through there, and they can have all the information there. I probably should know the time.
I will say Class of 1984, great movie, though.
Yes, yeah.
Disturbing, but great.
Yep. Going to be a fun time. And then to quote the late, great John Lennon, if you talk about destruction, you can count me out. And everybody enjoy your night and try to make somebody smile. Bye.
Have a good one.